Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiana Maxey, and I will be discussing Yersinia pestis, the plague and Black Death originator. About my life and how I spread. As a bacteria, I typically live and thrive amongst the rat and wild rodent populations. Once a flea lands on and bites a rodent or animal that is carrying me, the flea then becomes infected with the plague. Infected fleas ingest me into their intestinal tracts where I multiply and reproduce using a process called binary fission. Let's explore. During binary fission, an organism duplicates its genetic material, also known as DNA. It then divides into two parts, with each part or new organism receiving a copy of the DNA. Once inside the flea, I block its ability to digest and break me down. When the flea bites its next host, I am regurgitated into its bloodstream. Within hours, I spread to various organs and organ systems. Macrophages, which are white blood cells that kill microorganisms, remove dead cells, and stimulate other immune system cells, attempt but are unable to kill me in some organisms. This provides me with a safe environment to increase my harmful effects, also known as my virulence factor. I continue to thrive in a host, whether human or animal, by resisting phagocytosis or being eaten by other cells. Hydrogen gas is my preference for energy, which fuels my reproduction and replication. Without a host, my survivability rate is limited. Humans continue to transmit me through direct contact with infected tissues and materials and through inhalation of infected respiratory droplets. These droplets come in the form of a cough or a sneeze. Let's discuss the three forms of plague that I take the credit for creating. Enjoy the visuals. The first type of plague is the bubonic plague. It's the most common form. It has an incubation period, which is also called the time between infection and manifestation of symptoms of a disease, of about 2 to 8 days. Infection enters at the site of the bite and makes its way to the lymph nodes to replicate. The lymph nodes develop buboes, which are painful inflamed lymph nodes in the groin area in armpits. The second type of plague is the pneumonic plague. Now, the pneumonic plague is the most serious and virulent form of the plague. It affects the lungs through inhalation of droplets in the air and has an incubation period of about 24 hours, but typically 1 to 3 days. The pneumonic plague may develop by inhalation of infectious droplets or from untreated bubonic and septicemic plague after the white Pestis bacteria spreads to the lungs. It can be spread from person to person. Some of the signs and symptoms of the pneumonic plague include fever, cough with bloody sputum, difficulty breathing or shortness of breath, nausea and vomiting, headache, weakness, and chest pain, just to name a few. The second most common form of plague is the septicemic plague. It occurs within days of exposure from a flea bite or from handling infected animals. It occurs when the bacteria multiply in the bloodstream, causing fever, chills, weakness, shock, bleeding under the skin and in the organs, and from the mouth, nose, and rectum, and blackening or death of a tissue and extremities. It can occur as a first symptom of plague or from untreated bubonic plague. Let's take a look at the history of how the plague began. It has been reported that the plague, aka Black Death, originated during the 14th century in Central Asia and was taken to the Crimean Peninsula by Mongolian army ships and traders. The plague entered Europe through Italy by rats living on trading ships from Genoa, Italy, sailing from the Black Sea, and made its way to the Silk Roads. Now, the Silk Roads are one of the most earliest and largest trade networks across Asia, Europe, and Africa. Now, a reputable historian, William McNeill, argued and proved that rest stops, which were called caravanserai back in medieval times, they helped to facilitate the spread of disease to other countries like Egypt, Romania, Poland, and Syria, as traders and their animals interacted in these close quarters. The fatal infection reigned and devastated the world during medieval times from 1347 to 1352, with a reported estimated death toll of 25 million to 200 million people. Recent studies have insisted and pinpointed that the plague originated in modern day Kyrgyzstan. Here's a visual of the Black Death during medieval times. Enjoy. Does the plague still exist today? According to the Cleveland Clinic, the plague still exists around the world today in countries such as Arabia, Africa, Asia, South America, and western regions of North America. The World Health Organization reports that there are an estimated 1,000 to 3,000 cases of the plague worldwide every year. Most of these cases appear in Africa, specifically in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Madagascar, as well as India and Peru. The U.S. sees about 7 cases a year, mostly in rural or remote areas in southwestern states such as Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and California. Let's review the ecology of the plague in the United States. According to the CDC, the plague occurs in rural and semi-rural areas in western United States, or primarily semi and upland forests and grasslands, where many types of rodent species can be involved. Many types of animals such as rock squirrels, wood rats, ground squirrels, prairie dogs, chipmunks, mice, and rabbits can be affected by plague. Wild carnivores can become infected by eating other infected animals. Scientists think that the plague bacteria circulate at low rates within populations of certain rodents without causing excessive rodent die-off. These infected animals and their fleas serve as long-term reservoirs for the bacteria. This is called the enzootic cycle. Occasionally, other species become infected, causing an outbreak among animals called epizootic. Humans are usually more at risk during or shortly after a plague epizootic starts. Scientific studies have suggested that epizootics in the southwestern United States are more likely during cooler summers that follow wet winters. Epizootics are most likely, in areas with multiple types of rodents living in high densities and in diverse habitats. In parts of the developing world, plague can sometimes occur in urban areas with dense rat infestations. The last outbreak of a rat-associated plague in the United States occurred in Los Angeles in 1924 through 1925. Who is most likely to get the plague, and how can we protect ourselves? The following people are at risk for contracting and spreading the disease. Those who reside in areas where the disease is most prevalent are at risk for the disease. People who frequently touch living or dead infected animals, veterinarians, and those who work closely with animals on a regular basis. Those living in highly populated areas with high numbers of rats, and fleas, as well as those people who spend a lot of time outdoors hunting, hiking, and camping. To protect yourself from the plague, avoid areas with the plague and check the CDC website for traveler notices about plague outbreaks. Avoid infected people and animals. Fill holes and gaps in your home to stop rodents such as mice, rats, squirrels, chipmunks, or rabbits from entering. Clean your yard and ensure that you get rid of all piles of leaves, woods, and rocks, any place where animals can make their home. When you're outside, use bug repellents to prevent flea bites, and don't forget to use flea control for your pets. And do not let outdoor pets, to include cats and dogs, sleep in your bed. So what is being done about the plague or Black Death today? Currently, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved the following antibiotics to treat plague and prevent plague in individuals who have been exposed: streptomycin, doxycycline, levofloxacin, ciprofloxacin, moxifloxacin. Without treatment, the infection can be fatal. The use of standard precautions to prevent acquiring the infection is highly encouraged by the CDC and the World Health Organization. Standard precautions include implementing good use of hand hygiene, use of gloves, masks, and eyewear, and respiratory hygiene to include cough etiquette. There is no vaccine that is commercially available or approved by the FDA against plague in the United States. In recent studies, researchers have tested 3 vaccines that are designed to protect people against infection from bacteria, Yersinia pestis, that causes plague. The plague or Black Death contributes substantially to the knowledge gained by modern societies about how to prevent, manage, and possibly eliminate pandemics. The economic impact of the disease is comparable to that of pandemics that followed it, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. Examples of the economic impact of the Black Death during medieval time includes the decline of trade and the increase of labor costs due to the lack of workers. We're currently seeing that today. Malnutrition and extreme poverty for many peasants. Widespread chaos and social instability in the form of revolts, a decrease in faith in religion, people abandoning their homes, family, and friends, all resulted as a result of the plague. In summary, Yersinia pestis is the bacteria responsible for the infectious disease known as the plague and Black Death. This disease reduced the population around the world by approximately 25 to 200 million people during the 14th century. It is crowned one of the largest and most devastating pandemics of all time. Although the fatal disease created a period of economic and social hardship, scientists and researchers were able to gain knowledge that's instrumental in managing diseases, disease processes, and future pandemics like the current COVID-19 pandemics. Any questions? Would you like to know more about Yersinia pestis? Please review the next slide for videos or links to videos about more information concerning Yersinia pestis. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and have a good evening.